Hartelijk bedankt, Matthijs. Dat was echt interessant. En ik hoop dat jullie en jullie vervolgers in de loop van de tentoonstelling, de volgende 5 maanden, zullen wel zulke advies kunnen onthouden en zulke advies gebruiken, echt om in het museum iemand anders te worden. Want dat is echt de uitdaging van deze tentoonstelling. Ik zal overschakelen naar het Engels. Dus ik hoop dat het oké is voor iedereen. Ik denk dat het prettiger is en ik kan tenminste mijn boodschap makkelijker kwijt in het Engels dan in het Nederlands. Matthijs, I want to return to the question of my distrust of theatre. And also to say that I am beginning to change, made dankzij your influence. But also because I think the idea of performance, the idea of how we perform as human beings, not so much on the stage is still a problem, but the idea of performance is something which I think becomes increasingly important for us. How much we're conscious of the fact that we're playing roles in our everyday life allows us to change. And I think one of the most important questions we're being asked of today, in this day which is becoming more radical than we might have expected perhaps with events in the world, is that question of how we can change, how we can make a U-turn, how we can say what we used to believe we no longer believe, and what we used not to believe we can believe. There's so much emphasis on the idea of integrity, of being true to yourself, but what if you change? And I think that challenge that we all face, I think, in the coming years, is something that theatre, or at least performance, can teach us an awful lot about. Now, in honor of Matthijs's presence, I've also chosen to start this little talk with a quote from Jerzy Grotowski, who is a theatre director. A Polish theatre director like Stanislavski as well. Somebody who I believe was a significant figure for Matthijs in his own learning of becoming a theatre director. This is what Grotowski says. He asks a very simple question. Why are we concerned with art? And he answers it. To cross our frontiers, exceed our limitations, fill our emptiness, fulfill ourselves. This is not a condition, this being concerned with art, but it's a process, which means change. And it's a process in which what is dark in us slowly becomes transparent. So why are we concerned with art today? Let's answer, or try to answer a little bit, Grotowski's question again. It seems to me that this we and this art are the things that we're concerned with in this exhibition. The public and the art. And the art we are talking here, and this is where I come back to Matthijs's point, the art we are talking here is not divided into those unnecessary narrow modernist divisions of visual, spoken, written, performed. That belongs to the past, those divisions. They no longer make any sense in the world today. We need art in its most generous definition. We need an art that can touch us and affect us, and not an art that speaks only to our eye, or only through our mouth. The art we are concerned with is in this case on display here in the museum. We have the examples of this thing that we're concerned with just outside the door. That art is there to help us to cross those frontiers and exceed those limitations. But how? What are the means by which this process of making what is dark become transparent, shared? How do they become active? If art is what Grotowski says, how does it happen that that change comes about? I think we all know that this is an old question, perhaps as old as art itself, and there have been many answers over the years. But I think I can speak for us all here in the museum in saying that we feel, at least in the last 20 years or so, something has been lost in that idea of art as challenging and provoking us as individuals to change ourselves. By the demands of the government, and we know what's happening now in the Netherlands, and by the logic of the market, art has joined battle with the mass entertainment industries to become something called creativity. It competes for attention with every other product on the shelves of the innovation supermarket. That is what Eindhoven, amongst many, many other cities, presents itself as. And it inevitably, because it's in competition with them, has to use the same language and the same tone as those products. We in the museum see this as a loss, an impoverishment, a verarming of the possibilities of art, as art becomes more and more conformist and less able to help us change. But, and this is I think important, as important as the first point, there is no turning back to the false truths of modernity, the truths that founded this museum and that established the collection. That's also gone. Contemporary artists don't want these days to return, the days of modernity, and nor, I hope, do we, in the museum and here in the hall. Modernity divided disciplines and also divided people, between third world, second world, first world, but also between those interested in one thing and those interested in another, between art and science, between technology and academic. It required an upbringing in and an acceptance of the rights of a particular society, a modern society. And that is precisely why so many people in the world want to question and resist it today. And we can see this on the newspapers every day, but we can also see it in the kind of art that's being produced. Contemporary artists, whether they're from Eindhoven or from Thailand, want to go beyond the rules and rituals of modernity to find a better way. And we as a museum, and I think as a society, need them to do this, to help us again cross frontiers and exceed limitations like art has in the past. So it is in answer to this question, why are we concerned with art and how can we make that process come alive, that we have offered 4 roles as helping hands. They each address the process of allowing art to do exactly what Grotowski desired, to be a vehicle. He often used the word art as a vehicle, to be a vehicle to fulfill ourselves and reach another perception. Now, for those of you that come regularly, you know that Play, our great project over the last almost 2 years, has reached its end here in the 4th chapter. It has been a long journey since November 2009. We have looked at the nature of museums themselves and still are in museum models upstairs. We've looked at history and contemporary politics, and we've now arrived at the visitor, him or herself. I think this project has been crucial to us, but I think also to museums, certainly in Western Europe, to try and redefine the roles and expectations of a museum today. No longer is this the display of the contents of a treasure chest. Instead, what the Van Abbe Museum has started to become, and what it needs to continue to build on, is a critical and questioning device, a vehicle, which artists and publics can use to investigate the world around them. Now, this doesn't make the Van Abbe Museum the most popular institution in the country, but I don't believe that should be its role. It should be a working and a thinking place that doesn't isolate the act of looking or confirm a sense of beauty already established, that it doesn't simply provide what people want, but it provides perhaps what people might need. I want, if possible, to try and do something very simple, which seems very almost banal in its observation. But I think what we want to try and do is put the eye, which got separated in modernity, along with all those other separations, back into your head, and your head back on your body. Don't separate out these skills. We have one body, we have one sense of being. If you look at Sarasi Kulsuwong, that's about one sense of being a human being. It's not about separating these things out. A white cube is basically, the intention of a white cube is you take your eye out of your head and you throw it in the room and you throw your body away. And we want to bring that back. Now that's very unmodern, but I also think it's very important to understand that that's the attempt that we're making, and that attempt is going to be fraught with difficulties. It's going to be fraught with critique because it moves away from the established rituals and rites that we're used to. But it leads somewhere far more important and far more interesting. The lessons, the successes and the failures of Play are what we will take with us on the next steps of this journey, aligning the museum with the needs and desires of contemporary artists and their publics, who are all working in a world where, and I think I'm referring here to North Africa, but I think it's going to spread, where radical change does seem a little bit closer now than it has for a long time. Before I end, I want to focus a little on some of the works in the exhibition. I think there are many works in the exhibition I could focus on, but I wanted to focus on 3 in particular that are in different degrees made especially for this exhibition and the spaces that they occupy. In the old building, in the centre, we have Oliver Ressler's dense, fascinating installation that points to the unfulfilled nature of democracy and how urgent its reinvention is today. When was the last time you heard a politician say we need to change the system? 1968? 1989, but it wasn't here. Why don't we hear that anymore? There's something wrong with the system that only wants to preserve itself. And I think this work, if you spend time listening to the people that are trying to reimagine democracy, because democracy is worth saving, I think, to try and reimagine democracy is actually something that's very important. It serves as a centerpiece within the old exhibition, within the old building. In a way, I think that brings together, if you like, a parliament of things. We could imagine this collection as a parliament, yeah? All with their own rights and their own opinions and their own ideas. And that parliament of things in a democracy has to be brought together in an exhibition. And hopefully in this project by Oliver Ressler, there's an opportunity to see what might happen, at least in your head, when that discussion between all those objects in the exhibition happens. The second piece I'd like to talk about is Serassi Kulsawong's Naked Machine, that I hope you cannot really fail to miss if you walk through the building. I have to say on a personal note, this is the 3rd time that I've worked with Serassi on different versions of the Beetle project, and I have to say that I think it's getting better all the time. I don't know whether he's here, but I hope he's hearing these words. This time, I think for the first time, the whole car has been cannibalized, everything. And what you see laid out there are all these strange new objects of everyday beauty, created out of the parts of this extraordinary machine. And through then the addition of so many small, meaningful objects, meaningful to himself, but also I think by transfer, meaningful to us, we begin to see the form and the design of the car resonating in all sorts of different ways. Yeah? This car that was invented at a particular moment in history with a particular intention, that has somehow overcome all its histories and become something that's loved by people. Sometimes I think you could say that this idea of mass production, which is at the core of the Volkswagen, this is one of the beginning of mass production, has become something to love and cherish. And sometimes I think, in a way, what we have in the Naked Machine is the secret fantasy of every Caver Club member or Beetle Club member in the world, to actually see the Beetle in this way. And finally, I want to mention Erwin van Doorn and Inge Nabus for their extraordinary installation, Ma Nu Moet Ma, which is just next to Serassi in the new building. These words, Ma Nu Moet Ma, were the last words of Erwin's grandfather. And the piece, in its darkness, we talk about darkness moving to transparency, which then comes ultimately in this vitrine to some kind of transparent understanding, speaks, I think, about the ever greater urgencies that we have as all societies, but it speaks about this society, of coming to terms with the histories and darknesses that we would rather not speak of. It was, I know, an epic project for both of them, and I am, I have to say, really delighted to be able to open it today, after having followed it as a local artist through all the many stages of its development. I want to thank all these artists and everyone else who is here, including Christina Lucas, Katharina Sieverding, Klaus Mettig, for all taking part in the exhibition. I also want to mention Basan Brock, who is a German curator, for his early ideas about role-playing, because this whole idea of role-playing has a history, and thank him for helping shape the project at a late stage. I hope all of them will feel that we have done justice to their works and we've done justice to their intentions to be concerned about art. In closing, I want to thank a number of people in the museum for their outstanding commitment. I have to say, I finished my go at installing this exhibition at 2:30 in the morning, but I know that Theo and some others were here until about 4:30. So I would really like to thank her for their huge commitment, Antoine and Theo, Sasha, Ben, Ron, Hamid, Diedrich, Perry, Leon, Michelle, and all the others, some of whom I haven't mentioned. You made it all possible. I would also especially like to express my enormous gratitude to Christiane Berndes, Hadass Seymour, and Luce Janssen for working so hard and brilliantly on the materials for the pilgrim, the tourist, the flaneur, and the worker. I really hope you have a chance to experience these roles and also to experience their differences. That was something that we worked on very hard, that they worked on very hard. And none of this, nothing that we've achieved in terms of the interpretation, the middling, would have been possible without them. So thank you very much if you're here, and if you're not, thank you. Anyway, I'd like to thank the collection staff Louis and Tos and Alice and the others for making this exhibition ready, for making it possible to show it at all, because what people say is we have this big depot with lots of art, but you need that art to be in a condition to be shown, and thankfully we have the people who have the expertise to be able to do that. And I'd also like to thank my colleague and the person who keeps this institution running, Ulrike Erbsler, who has, throughout the whole adventure of play that we've gone these last years, been a very important person indeed, crucial, without whom nothing again. I do feel, and I would like to say this to Christiana Hadas, Ulrike, Louis is here, other people I can't see, that I really feel that this exhibition we worked most as a team, in the sense that we each have our own skills and that we put them together to add up to a greater whole. And that's maybe an example that we can take from performance, where although there are great egos in performance, there's also a recognition that different people have different roles, and fitting them together is the only way that you can produce something. I think it's the same in a museum, but sometimes it's not recognized. I'm often only the person who does the speech. It's everybody behind it who actually makes these things possible. And I think that we're working better than we ever have done in that way. So please, now, I hope that was interesting, and I hope you can go back into the museum. You can close your eyes sometimes, as Matthijs suggests. You can have a look at the roles, but most of all, you can look at the art afresh, and you can hope that it addresses that idea of why we are concerned about art. Thank you very much indeed.